Welcome to Franchise Marketing Radio, brought to you by SeoSamba. Comprehensive high-performing marketing solutions for mature and emerging franchise brands. To supercharge your franchise marketing, go to SeoSamba.com. That's SeoSamba.com.
Lee Cantor here, another episode of Franchise Marketing Radio, and this is going to be a good one. Today on the show, we have Neel Parekh, and he is with MaidThis Cleaning. Welcome, Neel.
Hey, thanks for having me here.
Well, I'm excited to learn what you're up to. Tell us a little bit about MaidThis. How you serving folks?
Yeah, absolutely. So MaidThis is a work from anywhere cleaning franchise that focuses on two niches. One's residential cleaning and the other is vacation rental turnovers like Airbnb. So we're actually the first and only vacation rental cleaning franchise. And yeah, like I mentioned, we're a fully remote concept.
So what was the genesis of the idea? How did this come about?
Lee, I was working in corporate a few years ago, and I was trying to find some sort of side hustle, and I was trying a lot of different things like e-commerce, digital marketing. None of it really worked, and I came across a post on Reddit. Lee, do you know of Reddit.com?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I was on Reddit, and a guy posted how he started a cleaning company. I thought, what the heck, let me try this as well, and it started to work. And in hindsight, I figured out why it was working compared to anything else, but it started to work well, and I wanted to eventually quit and travel. And that's why I had to figure out a way to make this local business completely remote. And a couple years after that, I quit my job and took my side hustle full time and booked a one-way flight to South America and traveled for about 5 years while building MaidThis, and therefore was able to make the systems in a way that can be done from anywhere in the world.
So but you need boots on the ground in the markets you serve.
Correct. Yeah. So the cleaners are localized. However, your operations of coordinating things, picking up calls can be done from anywhere.
And then, so the people that are there cleaning, your job as the franchisee is just to recruit them, motivate, manage them. Exactly
that. And then, of course, on the other hand, you have the customers calling as well, right? So you're kind of almost like the middleman in between the two funnels which you're running. But I think what's cool and in this day and age is how fast technology has moved. You can have a local company completely remote. And I feel like a lot of people haven't really caught on to that yet. So a lot of home service companies, you don't really need boots on the ground as much anymore besides the actual labor going there. So that's kind of what we figured out just because of the timing that we came about in.
And then, so when you kind of made that mental shift and then you tested it, I guess, with yourself, you were remote and then you were trying to manage the people locally. What were some of kind of the breadcrumbs that were like, hey, this could really work? Like, when did you start seeing some traction, and when did you see this is more, maybe easier to manage than you maybe anticipated?
Yeah, great question. And I think at the beginning, I didn't think it could be done fully remote because you don't think that with a local business. So my parents had video rental stores, like a traditional brick and mortar store. So I always thought local businesses, you have to physically be there. There's a large in-person presence. And then what happened, and kind of how I figured out it could work for MaidThis is I was doing this as a side hustle, meaning I was doing it from my job. Basically, I'd run out in lunch breaks, take calls, just run and give cleaners cash because I didn't really know how to do this thing at all. So I kind of figured at the time, like, I'm actually kind of doing it remote. It's just from LA. And the one piece I could not figure out how to get out was doing in-person interviews for cleaners. So I always thought it had to be done here. Finally, I kind of solved that because I just had to go somewhere for vacation one time. So I found someone to do the interview for me and it worked. And that was the last piece of the puzzle. So then I said, okay, let me just try to take off completely, go to South America. And, Lee, whenever you have constraints, you kind of figure out a way to get creative around those constraints. So because I was not there at all, I had to figure out the systems in a way in order to make it work. And the beauty of any model that does this is that it works mostly for businesses which send technicians straight to a different job site, whether that's a home or that's somewhere else. As long as there's not a central office where customers have to come into, this model can work. So it was kind of a slow aha moment. I kind of figured out just from different things I was doing that, this actually can work. And then finally just made the plunge.
So then you eliminated the step of that in-person interview with the person that goes into someone's house. Did you get rid of that, or you just found another way to do that remotely?
I found someone who can do the group interviews for me in person. And Lee, what's kind of changed in the last couple of years is we were doing in person because cleaners were not very tech enabled, right? They wanted to meet someone in person. You have group interviews, you have that whole funnel. What happened since the pandemic is that everyone learned how to use Zoom. Everyone learned how to use Zoom. My 70-year-old parents know how to use Zoom and do karaoke on it, right? So like everyone knows how to use Zoom, including cleaners. So now you actually can be fully remote because you could run the entire interview funnel exclusively on Zoom, and people are tech enabled enough to be able to do that. So the game has changed in our favor because of the pandemic. We don't need to do group interviews in person anymore, and we don't do it in person anymore.
And then you've been able to elevate that Zoom interview or execute that Zoom interview in a manner that you're getting kind of the same read on this person, because obviously there's limitations to Zoom as in person. You're missing some cues, visual cues that maybe you would see in person. But you've been able to kind of navigate around that?
Yeah, good question. And I would say for the most part, yes. It will never be 100% compared to an in-person interview, right? You see kind of the body language cues and things like that. But a lot of things we are testing for is reliability is a big one, and attitude. So reliability, the people who won't show up for group interviews won't show up for a Zoom interview. And after that, we actually added another segment of the funnel, which is in terms of like a test cleaning. So there are different steps we added to kind of push them through those hoops a little bit more. So we've been able to achieve a similar level of success by adding and refining the funnel a little bit more.
So once you've kind of got this model down for yourself, how difficult was it getting that first franchisee to make that same mental shift and that same leap of faith that this can be done remotely?
Surprisingly not, because I think when people hear it, it's kind of like oh, duh, like, of course you can do it remotely, right? So for me, I think the biggest shift was actually, to be honest, understanding the franchise world. I didn't come from a franchise world. I didn't know anything about franchising. So getting into franchising and figuring out basically how to pitch this, who are the ideal franchisees, what are they looking for? I think that was more of a learning curve for me. But I feel like when people see the model and they understand it, like, hey, you don't need heavy overhead. You can run a local home services company pretty lean. This is just the way things are in this day and age. It doesn't have to be super old school where you have a big shop and hold on to supplies everywhere. So surprisingly, it wasn't that much of a mental hurdle for people. They get it immediately. So
did you kind of, I hear this a lot from founders, that you assume that the person who's a franchisee, potential franchisee, is a version of you. Maybe it's someone with a side hustle that is, coming from corporate, that is kind of seeing the world like I saw the world, so that this would be a logical path. Did you go down that route, or did you say, okay, let me start from a clean slate and let's see who would be attracted to this kind of a model?
I'm very curious what, Lee, you think the correct way to do this. Not correct way. I'm sure there's multiple ways to do it. I'm going down the path of probably someone who resonates with my story. And what I found from early emerging brands is people who resonate with your story are probably the ones who are going to be more bought in, right? So people who want to start it as a side hustle and eventually quit their job, they say, hey, Neel's already done it. Obviously he's done it. He's built a franchise off of it. Let me just copy that blueprint. So I've been approaching the path of the people who want to copy the similar model with side hustle to a remote local opportunity is kind of what I've been doing. Lee, what have you seen from different people you've interviewed? And
no, when they're just starting out, that seems to be the path, is like, oh, somebody like me, of course, because I did it. I'm proof. So therefore it'll be easier for me to sell because I have me as this example of doing it this way.
Yeah.
But over time, you realize, some people realize that, hey, maybe I was an anomaly, or maybe I was an outlier. I wasn't really kind of the optimal person. Maybe there is a different optimal person that this is a better fit for than me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that'll be a discovery process. We're still relatively new in the franchise world, been around for a year, have a couple locations. So still kind of figuring out who's the ideal target. But yeah, initially it's just, hey, who are people who resonate with my story, who have a similar background? And I agree. I think we'll see where this goes. But
something to consider, and this is what I'm seeing a lot of, as brands evolve, they're trying to partner with other brands. So I'm seeing more clusters of brands and that are targeting a similar audience member.
Interesting. And when you say partner, do you mean like someone buys a franchise, someone becomes a franchisee of one brand and another brand, or do you mean
so that okay. and the franchisor becomes owning all these multiple brands that have the same customer?
Oh, interesting. That's it.
So it's, I mean, I'm using the term cluster and I'm using these words. I don't know what they use internally, but there's now, I'm seeing a lot more what I'm calling professional franchisees, where they're like, hey, I'm building a portfolio. So if I'm going through all this hassle of getting this, a person who wants a maid, right? Mm-hmm. They also may want a painter, or they also may want someone to clean their pool, and it's the same customer. So the hard part is getting the customer. So if I can then now have 3 or 4 other services that I've already got the customer, I can now offer them, then there's some economies of scale for me, and I can build this kind of mini empire.
Interesting. Is it usually the franchisee who's going out and finding the different ancillary services?
No, the franchisor.
They're the ones who offer those.
Right. So, and then they start buying up these kind of complementary. They're looking for the emerging franchise, and they're like, this is a good fit to this portfolio. And then I have a portfolio of 4 to 6 services that I'm going after for this one customer.
Yeah. I love that. It makes. I mean, for us, I could think the most complementary service, for example, would be, let's say, window cleaning. Right. We do residential and Airbnbs, but a lot of the residential customers say, hey, I need my window cleaning done. Right now, we just refer it out to a partner. They give us business, we give them business. But imagine if we had that as just that bolt-on service as well. I like that a lot. Right.
And the more window cleaners the more you're going to grow your business, because that's a great referral source. And then if you can teach your people in the local market or working the local market to befriend, okay, I need you to meet the window cleaner, the painter, the landscaper, like all these people who are outsourced those kind of home services.
Yeah.
Then your choice is also one of those outsourced home services.
Yeah. I love it. I feel like, Lee, you're giving me way too many ideas right now. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go start a window cleaning franchise right now. I need to take a step back.
It's the same model, right? Like once you've got your thing, now you can plug and play with all those home services.
Exactly. I like it.
So now, like you mentioned that this was kind of your first venture into franchising. What have you learned about that process? Because your business, when you're going from hey, I'm a remote cleaning service to I run a franchise of remote cleaning service providers, you're going from, okay, let me get one more client to let me become a training operation and helping someone learn these skills and kind of be successful in selling that one more local client. So how has that shift happened for you? Was that a difficult transition?
It was, I guess, I heard a phrase, Lee, where it's like the ignorant are often the most bold. And I feel like that's what I was. I didn't know what I was really getting into because I was completely ignorant on the industry and what franchising was and what I'm basically selling. I always say I'm pleasantly surprised into how much I enjoy it. Honestly, I care for more when my franchisees make a sale than when my corporate office makes a sale. I just get so pumped because it's like, hey, the model's working, and it just brings me a lot of joy. So actually seeing my franchisees trust me and buy into the system and seeing it paying off for them is huge for me. So I've been loving that part a lot. One thing which has been very interesting is, let's say cleaning, you may be selling a $200 cleaning. Going from a $200 sale to a $35,000 plus sale, right? That's a big jump. It's not like, hey, I gradually went up from 200 to 1,000 to 10,000, and then now I'm doing like a large ticket item. So going straight to a large ticket item sale has been an interesting shift, and it's made me have to like really retool what I'm doing. And I'm realizing like I'm actually running 2 businesses, right? My corporate offices as well as the franchising, because it's related, but it's extremely different. So that's been a lot of the learning I've had in the last year or so.
And then, so where are you at right now? How many up and running franchises do you have?
Sure. Yeah. We have 2 franchise locations. One's in Denver, one's in Myrtle Beach. And we have 2 corporate locations, LA and the Bay Area, so like SF. And
then, are you going for regions, or are you just like kind of the world is your oyster and wherever they come, they come?
For us, because it's remote model, wherever they come, right? And I think people who are in that local market have a better handle on whether their market's good or not. So I know there's a strategy of targeting specific states and saying, hey, I'm going to target this state. I think there probably are some states which are very conducive for vacation rentals. For example, Florida has 35% of the entire nation's vacation rentals. Those are probably really, really good markets. But the reality is with cleaning, every household is a potential customer in theory. So it's not like we're just segmented to certain key markets and that's it. So because of that, the entire country is our oyster, and anywhere works. And it's a remote model as well. So I have people who are living somewhere else who want to open a franchise somewhere else, and it's doable with our model.
And then are you constantly kind of upgrading your technology in terms of making an app or something that's easy for your franchisee to totally kind of send them to one location? They can do all the behind the scenes, like schedule, pay, like all the kind of elements of the business all in one kind of nice technology bucket?
Yeah, I mean, we came to the market with that tech stack in place. That's what kind of allowed me as my corporate office to get ahead so quick. Is just we're just more tech enabled than any other cleaning company. So we already had that before we even got into franchising. So they piggyback off of that. A lot of my upgrades for the franchise system are based off of my learnings from corporate and also seeing what the other franchisees are doing and bringing that to everyone else. So I do feel like the shared economies of scale with just trying out a process and system, seeing if it works and rolling it out has been the biggest benefit, because you could just speed up things a lot. If there's 4 different locations testing things out and everyone can share the knowledge, you save a ton of money from not having to test things out individually. You could share resources. It just makes a ton of sense. So I think the processes is the refining of the processes and the funnel has been the biggest improvement month over month in the franchise world.
Now, have you gotten to the point where the folks that are out in the wild doing the work, the franchisee, are bringing to you, hey, this is something that's working here, that's a learning, that you're like, oh, I didn't think of that. That's a good one. Let me implement that moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of the learning has come on the marketing end. And I'm sure you guys, know this, Lee, but like it's very city by city from marketing. Yelp works great in California, does not work great in Myrtle Beach, right? So there's not a one size fits all for marketing in any local market. So the cool part about this is there's some stuff which does work. SEO works no matter where you are. Google is key everywhere. But there's other things in smaller markets which you might need to get scrappier for, picking up the phones and calling real estate brokers, attending your BNI meetings, right? More networking stuff, which I maybe have not had to do in LA because it's a massive city. I got that knowledge from our franchisee, and we know like, oh, this works. This is how you do it. Let's document it, put it in our operations manual. Everyone has access to it. So I think on the marketing end, just with the different size cities has been very, very telling.
But when they're doing that, then it can no longer be remote if that some of the marketing has to be done kind of boots on the ground?
There's parts of it where the majority of it is digital marketing. So the majority of it is going to be remote. For example, our Denver franchisee, I think they only do digital marketing. But our Myrtle Beach location, the individual happens to be there already. So most of it's digital marketing. He's working a full-time job, but on his spare time, he's able to actually attend meetings and do different things. So it's not a requirement, but it's something extra and beneficial if you are there, at least at the beginning. And
so what's next for you? What do you need more of?
Next for me for franchising?
Yeah.
Get more, honestly. We have the 2 right now, and I'm loving it so far. Our goal, Lee, is not to grow 100 in a year. I tell everyone, hey, my criteria is if you check mark all the boxes of what I need in a franchise, I also need to be able to have a beer with you. I want to make sure we get along well. And that's the goal of what we're doing in business is, you want to be in business with people you like. So I'm looking for a select few individuals to really, really grow and expand with them to multiple territories as opposed to a mass quantity of franchisees. So my goal is just kind of slow and steady growth going forward and finding the right people in the U.S. So.
Yeah, that's what I hear a lot of is that the first franchisees are critical because that's the ones that other people are going to use to validate the concept.
Right. Exactly. And even more than that, I think I talk to them every week, right? You want to make sure you like them and make sure they like you, and just it's a good cultural fit. So that's very important for me.
Well, congratulations on all the success, and it's so refreshing to see someone going to kind of an industry that has been doing things one way to kind of look at it through fresh eyes and attack it totally differently. Well, kudos to you.
I appreciate those words. Thanks, Lee.
And if somebody wants to get a hold of you, learn more about the opportunity, what's the website?
Sure. You just go to MaidThis franchise. That's MaidThis franchise.com.
And then if you go to MaidThis.com, that will take you just to the consumer site?
Correct, which has a franchise link in there as well, but you could check out both.
Good stuff. Well, Neel, thank you again for sharing your story today.
All right. Thanks, Lee.
All right. This is Lee Cantor. We'll see you all next time on Franchise Marketing Radio.